Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Last time, we left Evan settling into his new role at the old radio station, getting used to the quiet nights and the lonely hum of the equipment. If you missed part 1, the link is down in the description. Trust me, you'll want to catch up. For everyone else, let's dive back into the static. Evan's first few weeks were uneventful. He played the late-night classics, took a few calls from lonely truckers, and watched the moon arc across the sky. The job was exactly what he thought it would be, a peaceful escape. But one Tuesday, just after 2 a.m., that peace was shattered. The phone rang, a sharp, jarring sound in the otherwise silent studio. Evan picked it up, expecting another song request. "You're on the air with Evan at K-Wave," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. But there was no response, just a crackling sound like a bad connection, and a faint, airy whisper underneath it. He strained to listen. It sounded like breathing, cold, ragged breathing. "Hello? Anyone there?" he asked, a little more forcefully. The line went dead. He shrugged it off. Prank caller, probably. Teenagers with nothing better to do. He put on a record and forgot about it, until it happened again the next night. This time the whisper was clearer, though still distant. A woman's voice, thin and reedy, cutting through the static. "It's so cold," it said. The words were drawn out, shivering. A shiver ran down Evan's own spine. He looked at the console. The caller ID was blank. "Ma'am, are you all right? Where are you calling from?" he asked, his professionalism kicking in. The voice came again, laced with a strange, hollow echo. "I'm cold. They never found me." And then, click. The line was dead. Evan sat there, the silence of the studio suddenly feeling heavy, oppressive. It wasn't a prank. The fear in that voice, it was too real. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just a bad connection, someone with a tragic story. But the phrase, "they never found me," echoed in his mind. Over the next week, the calls became a nightly ritual. Each time, a different voice, a different fragment of a sentence, all layered with that same chilling static. A man's voice, rough and panicked. "The water's rising. I can't." A child's voice, small and lost. "Mommy, where did you go?" Each call ended abruptly, leaving Evan with a racing heart and a room that felt degrees colder. He started checking the caller ID obsessively. Most of the time it was blank. But one night, something flickered on the small screen. It wasn't a phone number. It was a date, October 23rd, 1978. Evan stared at it, confused. It had to be a glitch, a system error. He rebooted the console, checked the wiring. Everything seemed fine. The next night, another call, another voice begging for help. The caller ID blinked to life again. November 1st, 1978. Evan's mind was racing. These weren't just calls. They were impossible. He started keeping a log, writing down every word he could decipher, every date that appeared on the screen. The dates were all clustered in the late autumn of 1978. What was going on? He felt like he was losing his mind, trapped in a late-night horror show of his own making. The voices were desperate, pleading, and they were all calling him. He knew he couldn't handle this alone. He needed answers. The next day, he found the station's old maintenance logbook in a dusty filing cabinet. Flipping through the yellowed pages, he found a name. Alistair Finch, an old technician who had worked there since the 70s. A long shot, but it was the only lead he had. He found a number for Alistair in a local directory and called, his hand trembling slightly. An elderly man with a gravelly voice answered. Evan introduced himself and explained he was working at the old K-Wave station. He hesitated, then decided to just be direct. Alistair, I need to ask you about something strange. The phone lines, have they ever had issues? Like displaying wrong information? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Alistair finally spoke, his voice was low, somber. You've been getting the calls, haven't you, son? Evan's blood ran cold. You know about them? Know about them? I lived through them, Alistair said, his voice heavy with memory. It's not the lines, kid. It's the station. It's the air itself. You're hearing ghosts. Evan felt a mix of terror and validation. He wasn't crazy. Alistair continued, his voice barely a whisper. Back in '78, we had the big flood. The Spring Creek Dam broke. It happened so fast, no one was ready. The whole valley went under. Roads washed out. Power lines went down. For a few days, this radio station, we were the only thing connecting people. We were the only lifeline. Evan listened, captivated, a sense of dread building in his chest. We broadcast emergency messages day and night, Alistair said. People would call in, reporting where the water was rising, trying to find their loved ones. We were their last hope. He took a shaky breath, but the phones were overloaded. The lines kept dropping. We took dozens of calls from people trapped in their homes, in their cars, people we couldn't help, people the rescue crews couldn't get to in time. The puzzle pieces clicked into place in Evan's mind. The desperate voices, the static, the cold, the dates on the caller ID. Evan started. That's when it happened, Alistair confirmed. Late October, early November, '78. The worst of it. They say a sound wave never truly disappears. It just gets quieter, fainter. Maybe those calls never hung up. They just got stuck in the wires, echoing through time, waiting for someone to pick up. Evan sat in stunned silence. He wasn't just a DJ anymore. He was an operator for a switchboard of the lost. The voices weren't just random static. They were the final words of people who had died in the flood. Their last desperate pleas for help, bouncing through the decades to land in his ear. They never found me, the woman had said. It wasn't a metaphor. That night, Evan returned to the studio with a new sense of purpose and a new kind of fear. He wasn't just listening to voices anymore. He was listening to history, to tragedy. He sat before the console, the phone silent for now, and waited. He knew they would call, and this time, he would be ready to listen. The question was, what could he possibly do for them? And that's where we're going to leave it for today. The story is getting intense, right? What do you think Evan can do? Let me know your theories down in the comments. I read every single one. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss part 3. We're going to find out what happens when Evan decides to answer back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.